So happy to have all of you here today. I'm Jerry Roth. I am the president of UIA. I say good morning because I'm here in San Francisco. I know that all of you are around the world. Very excited today to be opening this presentation on online mediation, the advantages and the challenges. We have a wonderful panel to deal with that today, whom I'll be introducing in a moment. Just to remind everyone, as you know, UIA has been very active these past months. We've put on this series of webinars, of which this is part. We now have been posting a series of web podcasts on our website and on our social media networks. We're organizing our virtual Congress at the end of October, at which one of the main themes will be international arbitration, as well as a number of other themes and exciting events. There are some things we're allowed to do virtually that are difficult to do in real life, so I think it's going to be a very exciting opportunity. And I also want to mention, as I was just discussing with the panelists, that UIA is joining up for the first time with Law Asia, the major Asian international lawyers group. And we're going to be putting on a joint webinar in August 18th. You'll be getting notification about it. Also on the issue of mediation and arbitration. So we have a lot of exciting activities planned, and this is just one of them. And with that, I will turn it over to the panel. I will click off my video. And with that, we have, in addition to George FEGHALI, an old friend of mine, and Jody SIN, who's here from Hong Kong. We have Thomas Gaultier, who's French, American, and Portuguese, and I don't know what else. So this is a very UIA panel. I'm very excited about it, and thank you all for being here. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jerry, and thank you for this introduction. As the moderator of this webinar, I'm going to try and not take up too much time and let the speakers do a lot of the talking. How this is going to work is I'm going to first introduce our friend Georges FEGHALI. I'll let him present on advantages and challenges of online mediation. Then I'll introduce our friend Jody, who will then talk about her topic, and then at the end we will try and have a little bit of time for a few questions and answers that you might have. If you do have questions and answers, don't hesitate to ask those questions via the the questions section of the GoToWebinar panel. Okay, and without further ado, I'm just going to introduce Georges FEGHALI really quickly. Georges is a lawyer and a mediator. He's the president of the UIA Mediation and Conflict Prevention Commission. He works as a mediator for the World Bank. He is a JAMS senior fellow, and he's based out of Beirut in Lebanon. And he also teaches mediation at university. Georges, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Thomas. And welcome everybody, and thank you for coming for this webinar. Today, the UIA Mediation and Conflict Prevention Commission start a series of webinars. We will hold today 2 webinars. The first one in English, and the second, after 1 hour, will be in French. The third will be in Arabic on 20th of July. Also, during the UIA 2020 Virtual Congress, which will be held from October 28 till October 30, the UIA Mediation and Conflict Prevention Commission will hold a virtual session. And I would like to take this opportunity to invite you all to attend it. Let me thank you all for coming, and let me check the PowerPoint. Okay, thank you. Online mediation, virtual mediation, or video conference mediation are words or slogans used recently for the purpose of continuing the use of mediation during COVID-19 crisis. It's a real opportunity for mediators, lawyers, and parties to start using online mediation, but many of them continue to doubt about the efficacy of the use of this new way or technique. For this reason, I decided to share with you my 9 years of online mediation experience at the World Bank Office Services and the impact of the use of online mediation on the efficacy and characteristic of the mediation. When I began my experience in mediation training and conducting mediation, I was completely convinced that fundamental techniques of mediation necessitate that mediators help disputing party to sit face-to-face to hold a direct dialogue. This dialogue should allow them to explain their views of dispute, to explain their concern and fears, to voice their willingness and desire to find a solution, and to convey their perception of that solution. As this dialogue is essential and necessary, it's preferable that it takes place face-to-face, physically face-to-face between parties. But the development of mediation, its adoption in all types of mediation, and okay, great. Oh, no, sorry. Okay. So the development of the mediation and its adoption in all types of conflict resolution and in workplace conflict resolution, as well as its overlap in the World Bank internal justice services to provide this service for about thousands of people working worldwide in the World Bank, with the high cost of traveling, especially when parties are based in different countries. Meant the mediation service office and the World Bank needed to look for a solution. A solution that could, on one hand, preserve the advantages of mediation, as well as providing the direct dialogue on the other hand. The technology, precisely electronic communication, led the way to provide the solution for avoiding traveling and its relevant cost. Electronic communication prompted innovation in the mediation process through the video conference, or what we call it, the online mediation. At the first glance, I start wondering about the efficiency of video conferencing in the mediation. Since all parties are not in the same room, or some of them are not physically meeting in the same room face-to-face with the mediator. So when I was first asked to start using VC in mediation, I was unsure and not convinced of the efficacy of the new tool. Why not sure? Because on one side, I had it up that the VC or the online mediation could preserve all the advantages and characteristics of the mediation. You know it, like efficacy, the speed, cost efficiency, less tension, accessibility, dialogue, flexibility, etc. On the other side, there are a lot of advantages to sit with the other party in the same room and hold direct dialogue. Mediation, as you know, is an amicable conflict resolution, and providing a direct dialogue in a joint session could help a lot to reach an amicable agreement. It's only this direct dialogue and direct exchange that we could and we can help deliver the quality of resolution. At the time, providing a direct dialogue to the parties could mean to me only a substantive joint session and sitting with party in the same room. In addition to all of that, many of professional mediators are counting a lot on body language to detect anger, tension, or any other stressing situation. Body language is one of the most important sensors of tension. When saying body language, that means the language of the entire human body, not only the face. However, after 9 years of online mediation, I can now say with no doubt that this new tool has contributed greatly to the success of the mediation. It makes mediation accessible anywhere, at any time. Imagine how much easier, faster, accessible, and less expensive it became to conduct mediation between parties resident in different countries. Online mediation is perfect solution when a mediator is not in the same country as the parties concerned. And all of this are benefit for the using of the mediation. But as professional mediator, we may ask, what impact can the use of the VC on the mediation efficacy and characteristic? Let's check all this characteristic. First, on the efficacy. No negative consequences have been registered while using VC. The percentage of success is always the same, and sometimes is getting higher. On the level of the mediation characteristic, the online mediation preserved and even improved this characteristic. The improvement is mostly highlighted on the level of flexibility, informality, time, expenses, and accessibility. On level of flexibility, when using online mediation, the mediation process is getting more flexible toward parties and mediator on level of time, scheduling, mediation seat, caucusing, etc. Also, when using online mediation, the informality of mediation process has been improved. On the level of rapidity, when using online mediation, the mediation could be faster than usual. No more distance or travel time between parties, mediator, and location of the mediation process. Parties and mediator could be flexible when scheduling the mediation session because they don't have to travel anymore and they can do the mediation session from anywhere they want. About expenses, mediation is usually and the best way to eliminate expenses, especially travel expenses such as plane ticket, hotel bills, accommodation. On the level of accessibility, to conduct an online mediation through VC is very easy and accessible. You can conduct it from anywhere through any private media that can broadcast a live voice and video, and the most important, to preserve the confidentiality. So I will give you a small example. My region as World Bank Mediator is the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, starting from Iran, passing by Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, West Bank, Gaza, going to the countries including Yemen, going to the North Africa, passing by Libya till Morocco. And that includes very dangerous places. Imagine if I have a mediation in one of these very dangerous countries. I would be maybe unable to accomplish my mission. But because of the online mediation, I'm able to accomplish my mission with a very well condition. But another question, what about the advantages and disadvantages of parties not being in the same room? Let me move the, okay. As previously mentioned, since the mediation is an amicable conflict resolution, sitting with other party in the same room to hold a direct dialogue is necessity. But it could help a lot to reach an amicable agreement. But after a long experience in face-to-face mediation and 9 years on online mediation, I could say that being with all mediation parties physically in the same room is not anymore a necessity, but could be sometimes a disadvantage. The necessity is to provide a dialogue between parties, and that's what the online mediation is providing. Why? First, let me talk about less tension. Another advantage has been found when conducting online mediation. The possibility of personal attack between parties, especially in the first session, has been reduced when using online mediation, compared with party in face-to-face meeting in the same room, since the environment is less tense, which permits to the parties to focus on the issue instead of attacking each other, and that gives them the opportunity to concentrate on the aim to find a solution. Sometimes there is a personal conflict between parties, and even if the original issue is not personal, but it could lead to a personal conflict. Parties want to go to the mediation to solve the problem, but sometimes they don't want to sit together in the same room. In such situation, online mediation is a perfect solution. I could say with no doubt that online mediation is providing effective dialogue between parties with less tension than being in the same room with the party. We still have one important question in relation with not being with the party in the same room. What about watching the body language of party as one of important tools used by mediator, since it's a sensor to control the tension or the stress? It's no doubt that watching the entire body of the person, the movement of his hand, his leg, his head, all the body is the perfect way to translate the body language. But after experience, I found that looking and listening to a person through the screen of my computer or any other monitor could also give me opportunity to read body language through facial expressions such as smiley or surly or sulky or gloomy face, through head movements, through even eyes movement and expression. Whatever the person is looking to the camera when the other party is talking, and the way in which the person is looking to the other party. The voice is also important. Is the person speaking with trembling voice, speaking loudly, speaking softly? So head, face, eyes, voice and shoulders, if it's our hand, if they are shown on the monitor, all these are good sensors for body language. But what are the disadvantages or the problem that we could face during online mediation? Okay. I believe there are no disadvantages resulting from the use of the online mediation, but there are problems that could occur during online mediation session. The problems that I faced are the following. First, it was technical problem. I'm talking here about connection problem, like no connection or interruption of the connection, unclear voice, etc. The solution, if any of the party had any technical problem, we cannot do anything and the mediation will stop till solving the mentioned problem. For that reason, it will be better to ask party to have always another alternative to be able to resume mediation session after any technical interruption occurred. But if a mediator face any of this technical issue, it's the best solution to prevent it. It's not only to have another available alternative, but also to be in co-mediation when mediators are based in different countries. In such situation, the session will continue with one mediator till solving the issue of the other mediator. And the mediator who kept going with the session will brief the other mediator what he missed. Second problem. Okay, another two issues could be indicated in relation with the long online mediation session. First one is the stress factor, which could lead to some negative consequences on mediation process. Long duration of online mediation could put parties in a stressful situation. Also, another problem from the long time is blue light risk. The second issue is the blue light risk, which could lead to vision problem. To prevent all of this effect, it's recommended that the online mediation session will not exceed 2 hours to prevent such type of issue. Third problem, okay, when electronic signature is not available. It's obvious that the aim of the mediation is to help parties in conflict to find a solution and to sign an agreement as a result of the mediation process. Also, the online mediation, the electronic communication lead the way to provide the electronic signature, the perfect way to sign mediation agreement without traveling. But the problem is when the electronic signature is not available, what we can do. From my legal background, I could say in such situation, and after all parties give their approval on the draft agreement, each party has to sign 2 copies of the mediation agreement and to send it to the mediator. After receiving all signed copy from all parties, the mediator shall exchange only one signed copy with the other party, and he will keep the second with him as collateral for any loss or any misuse of the other copy. In conclusion, at the end, I could say that through the online mediation, this evolution on the field of the mediation, mediators can now provide their client with a practical, accessible, faster, and less expensive tool to solve almost all kinds of issues or dispute. So thank you for your time. I will give the floor now to Thomas and Judy. Thank you.
George, thank you very much. Well, you have me convinced on the use of online mediation. Thank you very much for your points and for the different remarks that you made, a fruit of your experience, long experience with the World Bank. So thank you very much, George. I'm now going to turn to Jody. Jody is a lawyer and a mediator. She is the vice chairperson of the Hong Kong Mediation Council, based out of Hong Kong in China. She is also a mediation trainer and a good friend of mediation and of the UIA now, participating in different events with the Commission for some time now. And I look forward to listening to Jody also on advantages and challenges and her take on online mediation. Jody, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thomas, for the introduction. Let me move my slides. The slides were gone.
Yes, let me help you, Jody.
Okay.
Yeah. Just have to reopen the presentation. Here we are.
Okay. All right. I will move it backwards a little bit. Thank you for attending, everyone. So my part will cover a few things. First of all, there's a working definition of online mediation that we are talking about. And then I will cover some practical considerations that lawyers as mediation advocates, how he should work with the mediator in preparing for an online mediation session. And then from the perspective of working with the clients, what the mediation advocate should prepare his client to do. And then I would just go through very briefly the advantages and some of the challenges in the online mediation sessions. I will not repeat what George has already covered, but since the outbreak of the COVID-19, I think a lot of mediations have now gone online. We are using a lot of online meeting platforms such as Zoom, and last week I was using Microsoft Teams. So what's different between this kind of online platform and an actual in-person mediation? There are a few things there. I want to move my slides a little bit. Yes. All right, so we are having a different environment here. So we used to have in an in-person mediation session, we will have it in a conference room with everybody sitting there. And now most of the time we are doing it in this mode. We are having this mode. I'm sorry, the slides, the images came out a little bit slow. So this is the usual mode that we are having right now. So as compared with a physical room, all right, we now have virtual waiting room and virtual breakout rooms. And rather than having in-person contact with mediators, other party, or their lawyers, we are meeting virtually. So we're saying that usually we are just seeing people from the hat to the middle of the chest, like for gentlemen, is up to the second button of your shirt. So as George has just mentioned, we will be missing a lot of the non-verbal part of the communications, eye contact, body gestures. Something else we will be missing, like the time that we're sharing snacks with each other between the mediator and the parties. Some of the chit-chat times when we meet people in the corridor, the mediator meeting with the parties or their lawyers and have some very important exchanges during those times. Also, in an online environment, because of the use of technology, well, people come from different backgrounds. They may have different levels of competences in the use of technology. And this kind of varying levels of competences may bring about uncomfortableness or anxiety. And also, in preparing appropriately for the online session, all right, some extra work may need to do in terms of preparation. So let's move on to like what we need to look out for when we, as mediation advocates, work with the mediator. There are 4 things here that I would like to talk about. First of all, is the technology aspects, and then the etiquette. Thirdly, is about preparation, and lastly is about confidentiality and privacy. All right, in terms of technology, I think the most important thing is to work out with the mediator and the other parties what kind of online platform that you would like to use. So since the outbreak of the COVID-19, we have been using quite a lot of Zoom. Sometimes we use Teams and some other platforms, but whichever one, all right, agree with the mediator and the other parties. And secondly, the most important thing is about the internet connection. I think, well, though we all now use Wi-Fi, but in my experience, all right, having an landline internet connection is the most secured, and you will have the least delay in the communications. So this is my recommendation. Well, but check out with your mediators how you would like to get this done, how to prepare for these. And then it's about technology failure and backup. I think George has already covered this. Always have some kind of backup mode if just in case we can't reach out to the other parties in the mediation. I always encourage people to exchange their mobile numbers and emails with the mediator of 1 or 2 members in the team, so that they will be able to keep in touch with the mediator just as things goes wrong. And also, just explore whether there is any backup platforms apart from the one that the parties have decided to use. So a backup plan is necessary. And then you may wish to know, you may wish to ascertain with the mediator, who would host the process? I think this is very important, especially when we're now using the online platforms, whether it should be the mediator or one of the parties' lawyers can do that. Some kind of transcriber. Trust me, I know some American mediators, they say that, some mediators, they're not too familiar with the technology, and that's why they have delegated the hosting of the process to some kind of transcriber. All right, for me, I would suggest mediation advocates, you should talk to the mediator to make sure that the mediator will host the process. Why? Because the host will always have control. It's not just about the platform itself, but the most important thing is the access to all those breakout rooms. Breakout rooms is equivalent to caucus rooms in a mediation, where teams of people, they talk about things in an entirely confidential manner. So I would always suggest that don't allow the mediator to pass that on to anybody else, because this is the most important confidential obligation that everyone has to comply with. All right, apart from technology, etiquette. Okay, always get to agree with the mediator that you and your team may log in earlier, 15 or 20 minutes, that should be enough, in order to provide for time to solve any technological glitches, minimize any disruptions. I think it will be great to have some kind of protocol agreed amongst the parties and the mediator, such as muting your microphone when you are not speaking, just to have all the other devices like the cell phone or the computer to mute all those devices when you are having the mediation session. And also, respectful communications. What does that mean? I think in all the in-person sessions, we all talk about ground rules, right? How to behave respectfully to each other. And in an online session, one thing that is unique to the online session is about whether people should attend with video on or audio only mode. I think some American mediators share their experience that some parties attended an online mediation session with just the audio only mode. They do not know the reason why, because of maybe it's because of the computer, but some lawyers would just commented that having a party or an attendee attending with an audio only mode is just like an in-person mediation session with a person turning her back to everyone in the room. So do we want this to happen? Does the mediator allow this, or is this kind of audio only mode agreeable to all parties? I think it makes sense. It is appropriate for all the parties and the lawyers to, and also the mediator, to agree amongst themselves what will be the respectful communications. And of course, this is of course part of it. And then share screen. It is prudent for the lawyers to agree with the mediator. How would you like to share documents? In Hong Kong, we usually prepare a mediation bundle, whether that could be shared by way of PDF documents. And if in the joint session, we are going to share documents on screen, make sure that you as the mediation advocate is familiar with the function. Drafting and editing documents. When the parties are able to reach settlement, all right, how should the drafting of the documents be handled? Do they do it by way of sharing screen, sharing the draft document, and they edit it at the same time, or they can do it by way of emails? This is something that advocates can talk to the mediator beforehand, and you don't want to spend a whole day in doing a mediation session, you reach settlement, and you are struggling in the last part of it. And of course, George also mentioned about electronic signatures. I'm not a huge fan of it, though I know that in America, a lot of mediators, they use DocuSign, and then they accept electronic signatures. For me, I would prefer people signing it on the document and then the email to the mediator. So this is the way that we do it. But I think this is something that the advocates and the mediator, they can agree, or they could work that out by way of a protocol before the mediation happens. Better preparation. I think while mediators always have a pre-mediation telephone conference call with the parties. And for me in Hong Kong, I always do pre-mediation meeting with the parties. And for doing an online session, it is best to have a pre-mediation session. It's not just to talk about the substance of the dispute, but testing about the use of technology, whether the connection works well, and also the pre-mediation meeting allows the mediator and also with your clients, with the advocates, to establish the kind of work relation and the rapport between them. So testing in the mediation session, not just try to find out whether there will be technological problems, but it is a great time for the mediator and your team, advocates and the clients, to establish the kind of rapport and work relationship before the mediation formally begins. Confidentiality and privacy. All right, so the huge question is, who are in the room? This is something that you don't want to happen, is apart from the attendee, who else is in the room? Because, well, a lot of people, not just advocates, but the parties, they may be attending the session from different parts of the world. They could be attending from home, they could be attending from the office. Sometimes parties will need support in terms of the use of technology. So there could be some other people or that supporter to be available in the room. So how could we do that? Should that person also sign the confidentiality agreement? I think this is something that as an advocate, you should raise that with the mediator. Prohibition of recording, this is a very important topic. I would strongly encourage advocates to put a specific provision in the mediation agreement, if you don't have a kind of protocol as such, that any kind of recording for audio or video will not be allowed. And just in case there's accidentally something has been recorded, so the party will undertake to delete that. So this is to preserve the confidentiality of the process, and that should go, and I suggest that should go into the mediation agreement itself. And then breakout rooms, waiting room. So I'm just sharing the experience about Zoom. All right, in Zoom we usually have all the parties gather in the waiting room before they are arranged into breakout rooms. So as I've just said, breakout room is just like the caucus rooms in a mediation. So something might have happened will be people in a caucus room, they suddenly have someone who does not belong to the team hearing their conversations. I think many of you might have heard of what Zoom bombing is about, all right? So if that happens, what should the protocol be? Whether that person who suddenly entered into somebody's caucus room should log out immediately and then log back in again, and then just treat what he has heard, all right? Any conversations that he has heard, he just treat that he has not heard that before. So I think there's some kind of protocol that advocates can agree with the mediator beforehand in order to ensure that this will all the confidentiality in the caucus room will be protected. All right, always have a plan B with your client as to any caucus failure. So have some kind of calls or platforms get ready so that you could reach out to your client. Advising your clients in terms of online session, I would just be brief. I think having a stable and secured internet connection is a must, all right? You do not want your clients to attend a mediation session with a computer at an internet cafe. All right, so make sure that your client will have some kind of stable and secured internet connection. And usually in this kind of sessions, the mediator will send out a link to the meeting together with the password. Make sure that your client will not share the password or the link with any non-attendee to the process. Communications, backup mode, I have already mentioned that. And of course, usually in commercial mediations, you will have a number of attendees, the lawyers, the parties. So make sure that you have some kind of pre-agreed mode as to how the team communication will take place. Authorized representatives only for the session. I've already mentioned pre-mediation and testing. Ground rules, I would like to speak a little bit more about appearance on screen. I will move on to the next slide. Oh. So it is important that, well, how you should dress for the mediation session. Do you want to look formal, or is that some kind of dress code that people would like to agree on? All right, or video only or audio only mode, which mode will be allowed? All right. Okay, so that's about the considerations for working with the clients. I think George has already covered the advantages of online mediation. It lowers the cost, especially when you have multiple international commercial mediation parties. It saves time, people from traveling. There won't be any boundaries. And well, in an online mediation, especially when there's highly emotional conversations, sometimes when people attended it online, all right, it gives them a lot of protection when they are attending from their home. So it gives, they may feel more comfortable, and well, when things go worse, they may just turn it off their video for a while, all right? So it also allow reduced aggression. So it seems that lawyers and the parties will be less aggressive in their submissions. Challenges, well, this may lead to some kind of compromise connection with the clients, because well, many parties or lawyers, they said that they missed the opportunity to connect with their client, working out on solutions and negotiation, putting out offers, etc. So commitment to the process, yes, people got distracted, especially when they have downtime in the caucusing. So as advocates, all right, you can work out with the mediator how to make good use of the time when he is in another virtual room, such as any homework from the mediator, or whether there could be working out with your client as to what kind of offer that you could put forward, and also like any information that you would like to seek from the other side. So I've just gone through managing an online mediation, practical considerations that you need to have when you work with the mediator and your client. And when you're all ready, we are able to embrace a new normal.
Jody, thank you so much for your presentation. Insightful to hear all of your tips and recommendations to conduct an online mediation. We don't have any questions from the audience who I don't know if they were all aware that they could ask some questions through the questions section of the webinar tool. But I have maybe one question that I'm going to ask George and Jody, which you're going to have the challenge to answer in just a few seconds because we're running out of time. You mentioned that both of you, because of COVID-19, everybody was kind of rushed into an obligation, right? Into the obligation of using online platforms to conduct mediation. Okay? If I were a mediator, okay, and I've already done online mediation, so let's hypothetically imagine that I've never done an online mediation before. Okay? If you had just the two of you, just one most relevant piece of advice, okay, that you could give somebody either going into mediation as a mediator for the first time, or going into mediation as a mediation advocate, or even as a party for the first time. In addition to everything that you've just mentioned in your presentations, okay, would you happen to have any piece of advice that you would like to share? Jody?
I would think that important to get yourself really familiar with the use of the platform, because I'm talking about it from the perspective of an advocate. If you yourself is not familiar with the platform, how could you assist your client in doing that? So I think it's my suggestion that all the lawyers should spend at least like an hour or so to get yourself familiarized with the use, the breakout rooms and everything. I think this is something that a lawyer can do. Or the second thing that I would suggest is to propose an online mediation protocol. You can draft one, get the mediators to agree on some of the provisions that will necessitate the protection of the process and your client.
Thank you, Jody. George, to conclude this, we're getting a lot of questions from a lot of people. Unfortunately, as George mentioned, we're going to have a second webinar in 10 minutes starting in French. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to answer all these questions, which are very interesting. But George, if you want to comment.
I have only one comment. Like Jody said, the one who wants to conduct an online mediation has to be familiar with the online mediation. For that reason, if the mediator is not familiar with the online mediation, he has to. It would be better to invite another mediator experienced in online mediation to conduct the mediation with him in co-mediation. But I think, as we talked before, me and you, Thomas, maybe it's time now to give kind of training on online mediation for mediators, especially for mediator to be accustomed to do the online mediation.
And we actually have a question from Leah, who was asking about mediation training courses, potentially for online mediation. But I'm afraid we're going to be running out of time. Okay, and I think we're going to probably through the commission website, we'll try and post some information about this. In any case, for all of you who are asking about the PowerPoint, it should be available via the handouts section of the webinar tool. So if you click on handouts, you should have a link to the PDF document with the presentation. I would like, in the name of our 73 attendants, to thank dearly George and Jody for their excellent presentations. Okay.
Thank you.
I wish we could have had longer to keep talking about this fascinating topic. And I apologize to those of you who had questions for whom we're not going to be able to have time to discuss and to answer these questions. Unfortunately, it just goes to show how interested you are and how interesting this topic is. Thank you very much to all of you, and particularly to George and Jody. George?
Thank you. At the end of this session, I would like to invite mediators and lawyers to start using online mediation to provide their client with a practical, accessible, faster, efficient, and less expensive tool to solve almost all kinds of issues and disputes. Directly now, we will start another webinar in online mediation, but in French language, with other eminent speakers and another topic. And I invite you, the one who understands the French language, to attend it. Thank you for assisting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Bye.